Man, I am so thankful for campgrounds who agree to accept packages for us from Amazon because sometimes they're really large. This week we're visiting the Adirondacks region of northern New York. And I've learned that Adirondack Park is not a state park, it's not a national park. It's designated as, and I'm not sure if this is absolutely correct, but a National Forest Wilderness Preserve. So part of it is owned by the state, part of it is private land, some of it is public land, and it has no designated boundaries. There's no visitor center. You don't have to pay to get through a gate to get into it. It's just a 6 million acre parcel of land in New York State. So there's plenty of villages and towns and parks and trails and hikes to explore here in the Adirondacks. Guys, I am a fangirl of many things, and I saw something on the map today here in Ticonderoga, New York, that I could not believe my eyes, so I had to come see it for myself. We are at the Star Trek original series set tour in upstate New York. I don't know how this is here. I had to look it up. This is not the original sets of the original Star Trek. It is a painstakingly recreated set from the original blueprints of the Desilu Studios, where the original show was filmed from 1966 to 69. Yes, Star Trek was filmed on the studio made by Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in California. And this guy has put together all of the sets from the original blueprints and made this little museum. It's closed right now. It's the end of the day. We are definitely coming back here tomorrow to see this. Here we are back at the Star Trek original series set tour in Ticonderoga, New York. I've asked and they've said that we can take as many pictures as we want inside, but no video. So I'm gonna do a little slideshow here for you. Man alive, this was a great tour. It was about an hour long. The tour guide was excellent. He told us that the man who started this, James Cawley, was originally a tailor on the set of Star Trek The Next Generation and specifically worked with Will Wheaton on his costumes. He has since gone on to become an Elvis impersonator, and he was actually here today. We didn't talk to him, but I did see him in the lobby. So this is such a great fan experience. If you have a chance to come and you're a fan, I highly recommend it. So rather than just show you a bunch of photos that I took on this tour, I want to take you through it room by room because it really was a spectacular piece of television history. But if you don't care anything about Star Trek and you can't tell a tribble from a tricorder, you are more than welcome to zoom forward a few minutes. I promise you, you won't hurt my feelings. Okay, are you still with me? Let's boldly go where not too many people have gone before, because this museum only opened in April of 2017, so it's really fairly new. We're going to start briefly in the lobby, but first I want to say that this whole tour was a study in plastic, cardboard, and spray paint. If you're old enough to remember what TV was like before digital special effects, you'll really appreciate the toy-like, homemade quality of these sets and props. You could make most of the sets with things laying around your house today. The lobby is filled with costumes and props, and as I said before, the man who made this museum was a costume designer on Star Trek Next Generation. There were also several prop cases filled with basically plastic toys and everyday household items that were used as scientific starship equipment. I was struck throughout the tour at the ingenuity of these set designers in really using mundane, everyday things and dressing them up with spray paint or colored plastic buttons to make them look futuristic. Another really nice touch in the lobby was a small homage to Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. As I mentioned, Star Trek was one of the very first shows filmed at Desilu Studios, and Lucy put up tens of thousands of dollars of her own money to make sure the show was a success. In a small case in the lobby, they have an original coffee set that was used on the set of I Love Lucy as a nod to her tremendous dedication to Star Trek. So, on with the tour. The sets were laid out exactly as they were on the Desilu stage, and the first stop was the transporter room. This is where the characters would beam in and out of the ship. The platform is a wooden floor covered with some carpet, and they use lighthouse lens covers on the floor. And add some wavy plastic sheets and blue lights in the back, and boom, beam me out, Scotty. Outside the transporter room is the iconic circular hallway that goes around the saucer section of the Enterprise. This one hallway set serves for all of the hallway scenes in the show. By changing which end of the half circle they shot from and changing some lighting and shadows, they could make it seem like there were really different levels on the ship. All of the other set rooms are off of this hallway, just like on the ship, so it really gives you a sense of a coherent place instead of just a bunch of disjointed rooms. There were some fun things on the walls of the hallway, like these little plastic red alert buttons and these warning signs. The tour guide said that on set there were often jokes written on these signs because they weren't really readable on camera anyway. Also, these plastic etched nameplates that were standard in any office building at the time were kind of funny. The next room was the Astro Medicine Ward, or sick bay. This was a very minimalist room with plywood beds and colored light panels, and as a side note, even these light panels were not digitized. Pretty much every time you saw something moving by itself on the show, like doors opening or beds rotating or lights flashing, there was an actual person behind there pulling ropes or sliding levers. The medical lab next door was a bit more ornate and contained a lot more plastic and plywood. One of my favorite stories from the tour is about these spray bottles right here. Plastic spray bottles with trigger handles like these were displayed at the 1964 World Fair. When Star Trek premiered in 1966, they were still a novelty and people didn't really have them in their homes. Gene Roddenberry, who is the inventor of Star Trek, thought they looked so futuristic that he bought a box full of them and insisted that they use them in the show. The briefing room is, of course, the set of many conference room scenes with the crew of the Enterprise. The table is next to a beautiful window that looks out into space, which is actually a thin piece of black fabric splattered with silver paint. The chairs around the table were actually the same type of plastic chairs that they used on the Brady Bunch set, but they built tall backs and inserted them over the back of the chairs to make them look more futuristic. I love this story about the Federation flag in the briefing room. This was the original design of the Federation of Planets flag in the original series. If you know your flags, you'll know that this design was based on the Cuban flag. This was a nod to Desi Arnaz, who of course was Cuban and a co-founder of Desilu Studios. But because of the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 60s, the flag was never shown unfurled on camera. The next stop down the hall was the captain's quarters. This is actually the only bedroom set and was used as a generic quarters set for all the crew members. A low wall in the center separates the bed from a small desk, so by changing a few props and fabrics, it could easily be used for different scenes. I like this little food replicator next to the bed. William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk, has visited the museum several times over the past 3 years, and the tour guide had some really fantastic stories to tell about him, especially relating to several of the items in this room. The heart of the Enterprise is in engineering. This was the largest of the sets, complete with more spray-painted plywood and plastic buttons and a forced perspective 12-foot deep warp core. And that brings us to the last and most iconic set on the tour. We piled into a short hallway while the tour guide pulled the rope to open the turbo lift doors so we could step out onto the bridge. It was so surreal standing on that deck and looking down into the old vinyl captain's chair. They said that when William Shatner visited, the first thing he wanted to do was sit in his chair, and he told them they got it exactly right. And we also got to have a turn as captain of the Enterprise. That was cool. Guys, this was an amazing tour and we loved every minute of it. I am such a fan of how movies and television work behind the scenes. What a really special treat to find this hidden gem in the middle of the Adirondacks.
What do we got here?
All right, go ahead. We were sitting at our RV 2 spots away and just heard a loud crash. This tree limb came crashing off here. It's only been a light wind today. There's no severe weather. And you can see that it's just rotten to the core. Luckily, this is just an open space. There was no RV parked here. It's not even an RV site. Oh man, if this had fallen on an RV, complete destruction. Just goes to show things can happen at an RV park. There's a lot of trees around, a lot of older trees and campgrounds that haven't been maintained. And we got really lucky this time. Bryn and James are visiting us here in the Adirondacks, and James is a cliff jumper. So we found this little swimming hole. Bryn wasn't up for doing a big cliff, but she will jump off a little one. This is called Black Hole Falls, and we're gonna watch him. We're gonna watch him do some cliff jumping.
Do it, James. Let's see this.
You talk big.
Yeah. Now I don't feel. I thought it would be all sunny and hot. I'm like, oh, it's cold. It looks warm to me, James. I don't know what you're whining about. Does it? Well, in that case. Comes up there. Go! Go! He's waiting for you! He's waiting for you! Woo! Nicely done, go! You'll stop being cold. You got it, you'll be less cold.
And a little bonus, there happens to be a geocache right by the swimming hole here. So we're gonna drop a trackable. Now we have one in Acadia and one in the Adirondacks.
These ammo cases often have a lot of stuff in them. There used to be a trackable when this was first placed, or
Yeah.
a while ago?
Yeah. So I brought one with me. We'll put our travel bug 47W2MY. We'll drop this one in. Nice. finally taking this
1 to 3
opportunity
inches.
to put up our U.S. map on our RV to mark the states where we've been. So our rule is, everybody has different rules. Our rule is we have to stay at least one night with the RV in a state in order to qualify for a sticker.
All right, my home state of Maine. All right, is that all of them?
Yep.
And then the next, we're gonna go back through Pennsylvania, quick stop in Virginia, then Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, down to Florida. That's the next set.
All right. Thank you so much for coming along with us on our travels. We will see you next week in Pennsylvania. Bye.